Welcome to the second episode of the Journey to the Best You series, where I am with my co-host Flo, and today we're going to dive into some different topics regarding inflammation, muscle building, plateaus, stuff like that, anything related to basically, we've all been there, or at least I have been there, or most of us have been there when you're starting off on your weight loss or fitness journey and you get a little bit discouraged because maybe you see a little bit of results at the beginning, you're feeling a little better, and then you're looking at the scale and not much is changing, or maybe you didn't get any results at all. And so we're going to dive into a little bit about why that might be. But first and foremost, let's just address the fact that that can be very discouraging. When you set a goal for yourself and you're not getting the expected results right away, it can be discouraging. And in fact, that's why a lot of people fall off track. And this is one of the things that we love to address because, there's a lot of different reasons to that. And sometimes it's just time itself. And other times there are some things that we can tweak a little bit that can make us progress a lot further and a lot faster.
Yeah, I think you're right. And from an experience or from a conversation that I had with a client yesterday, it is very real to have been a few weeks in the journey after starting with the goal of weight loss to step on the scale and see that the number has not moved in a while. And in that moment, you feel really discouraged and you think about what you've been doing. And what you've been doing is you've increased the amount and possibly the intensity of your physical activity. You've started to go to the gym more than once a week and you take a walk on your lunch break. And you've also done the mindset work to stop overeating. And yet the number on the scale is the same as a week or two ago. So it can be really defeating. And what the brain in that moment can do is to make you feel that it's about you, and specifically that you're not doing enough and you need to do more. You need to add a working out session, or you need to eat even less. And I believe that this is a slippery slope because the reality is that it's about efficiency. And what I mean by that is your workouts are possibly not as efficient for weight loss specifically as they can be. And your meals are also probably not focused on the nutrients that would promote weight loss as much as they could. So it's not just about how many calories you burn in the gym and how many calories you intake in the day, although the weight loss equation that you need to burn more calories than you ingest, in a day is somewhat true. But the way that can happen is not necessarily by increasing, if you're already going 3 days a week to the gym and not overeating, the solution is not necessarily to eat less and move more. And that's what we're going to get into. It's like how to increase the efficiency of your workouts and your meals to target two specific things physiologically that are required for getting out of a weight loss plateau, or just if you're starting out on your weight loss journey.
Yeah, exactly. Efficiency is so key. And so one of the first steps is just to look and analyze your workouts. Are you pushing yourself? Are you struggling on that last rep? You want to push yourself to failure because failure is where you grow. And so that's one of the first things to look at. And even when it comes to cardio, that's why I'm such a big fan of high intensity interval training, just to get the most out of your time. For those who don't know, high intensity interval training is basically even just 10 to 15 minutes of going as hard as you can for 30 seconds to a minute, and then taking a short rest, basically just long enough to get your heart rate down to where you can talk to somebody and have a conversation, and then you bring it back up and then down again. And you can do this with any sort of cardio exercise. I'm not against obviously long cardio, but if you're going to do long forms of cardio, do something that you're going to enjoy. That's why, like, I do long forms of cardio and I go mountain biking and stuff like that. But then for lifting weights, that is, from my experience and what I've learned, is one of the best ways to lose weight. And there's reasons for that. One of the biggest things is it just increases your resting metabolic rate. And basically, long story short, you're just going to burn. The more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn while you're just sitting there chilling. And the other factor to that is increasing your VO2 max, which, to sum it up in layman's terms, is just by that's your essentially your circulatory system. So if your things are moving better there, you kind of need that to lose weight, and you'll get more like oxygen into the cells that way and stuff like that, and that's how you burn fat and stuff. So once you realize that and you've analyzed your workout routine and you've sort of optimized it and started putting it into practice, after that it's sort of just a time thing. And that's one thing I'll say too is, you might already be doing all the right things. You might not need to eat less. You might be eating all the right things, and your workouts might be fine. And the next step is just giving yourself time. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. But I'll just say that. But today we're really going to focus on the other stuff, like how do you optimize that? So
So let's look at how I analyzed this person's workout so that we can really paint a picture of what was not optimal and how we turned it into something more efficient.
Absolutely. Good little case study.
Yeah, exactly. So you said your last set or your set that you do. So first of all, when we say a set is a series of like movements that you do in a row. Okay. So it's like, usually it's like from, depending on how you train, it's from 3 to about 15 or even 30 for some exercises. So it's like, yeah, you're from the moment where you start the movement and you repeat it until failure, that's one set. And so when we say that set should be until failure, what we mean by failure is that the last movement that you do, it's literally not possible to like bring it all the way, whether it's like down or up, or the full movement is like barely possible on the last one that you do. And you should be like on the last like 5 or 6, you should be breathing harder, and your face might want to like crisp, and it takes really big focus. And I believe that this is triggering for someone who doesn't have the biggest confidence or cares a little bit about what other people think of them, because like that's when you start like looking weird, I guess, or sounding a little louder. And that's something to get over with, to be honest, because that's how training to failure looks like. So the thing is, with this person, or with anyone who does not go until failure on the last few little movements of the set, you'll know you're not doing the thing, like the going to failure, if you're able to go back and do another set within a minute. If you can go back within a minute, that means you can lift heavier, you can go harder, and there might be a little bit of a blockage in terms of like who's around you, how many people are close by. But yeah, again, that's something to get over with. So during that 1 minute or more, what can you do to promote the VO2 max?
Not for that minute. I'm not really sure for that minute. For increasing the VO2 max, it's really just pushing your limits cardio wise.
Okay.
And like full out sprints, like full out cardio movements, like really like you're pushing your max, your
Yeah.
maximum.
So when you go like up to failure in a set, once you stop that minute, that whole minute pretty much, or like, I mean, the first seconds at least, your heart will be pumping way harder than when you begin. If it's not, again, that means you can go heavier, harder, right?
Yeah, and for context, I mean, when I go to the gym, I usually aim for like 8 to 10 reps, and failure to the last one, and then take a little rest, and then you can, even if like as you start to go through your workout, even like with the same weight, like 2 or 3 sets in, you're only going to be able to do like 5 or 6 reps.
Yeah, as the set progresses, as you get to the third and fourth set, it's a very good sign if you cannot do the amount of reps that you were able to do the first 2 or 3 sets. Very good sign.
Yeah, exactly. Your repetitions and sets should never be easy because it's very common just for people to go to the gym, and fair enough, not everybody knows this information, and props to them for even just going. Like it's huge just to get yourself out of your comfort zone to go into an environment like that. But I see a lot of people that are just doing the reps, they're just moving the weights, and it's super. I can see it, it's like super easy, and it's like, okay, it's great, but you're kind of just moving your limbs. You're not really getting results that way. Like if you're just moving, so you really want to have like a resistance, because resistance in both your muscles and in life in general is what helps you grow.
Yeah, so this notion or this habit of doing the movement with weights that aren't creating a lot of resistance is great for warming up. So I highly recommend you do 1 to 3 of those before the sets that are heavier, that you are trying to get to failure, right? So if you discover that the weight for shoulder press is a dumbbell of 25 pounds in each hand, you're going to want to aim for 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 of those. But before you even start that, you could do one set with 5 pounds dumbbell and just do that same movement, shoulder press. And you can aim for like higher reps. So you could do 10, 15, 20, 30 reps. And that helps the mobilization of all the muscle and the joints. So you've got lubrication in your joints, so that prevents injury. So it's not wrong to do that, but you want to do that as a warm-up, not as your actual weight loss type of workout, And the thing that is really important to understand here is that the resistance, like Jordan said, the like higher resistance where it's a struggle to lift at the end, that is what creates micro tears in the muscle. It activates the physiological response of repairing in a bigger, better way your muscle. So your muscle cells will be bigger or higher in number, so that the next time the same weight doesn't feel as hard. It's a natural mechanism for all humans to adapt to a stressor. The stress of lifting heavy, your body adapts by building the muscle bigger and heavier. And the reason why this is what we want is that those muscle cells, they burn calories outside of the gym. They burn calories when you're resting, versus fat cells don't. So if you can increase your muscle mass, you can increase the number of calories that you burn throughout the day without exercising more often. And therefore, you can become closer to your calorie deficit without eating less. And then we can then go into what the meals can look like for targeting this other thing, this other side of the coin of getting out of a plateau or starting a weight loss journey, that is reducing inflammation.
Absolutely. And let's transition to that by talking about the recovery process, because the recovery process involves, of course, number one, sleep. And then second to that is food. And through that food, you want to make sure it's the ultimate and best food for recovery and not promoting any inflammation or anything that will inhibit your results for muscle building or fat loss, and making sure you're getting the proper macros and stuff like that.
So maybe we can break it down in two. What are the macronutrients that you need to make sure that you have in the minutes or hours after your workout to promote the best, to give your body the best resources, or the specific resources that it needs to rebuild that muscle stronger? And the other piece is, what nutrients do you want to have in the foods that you choose to put in your meals that will be anti-inflammatory, and also because of that will promote fat cells to release the fat that is in them.
All right, I'll do the macros, you do the micros. So for the macros, first, well, this is kind of a micro in a way, but no, it's not really. But your body, what happens is when you eat carbs or sugar, goes to your muscles first. First and foremost, it goes to your muscles. And if there's any excess, your body ends up storing it and it turns into fat. So when you're going to work out and use your muscles and lift those weights and push to failure, your body's going to use up all the glycogen or sugar that is stored in the muscles. And so after the workout, you're going to want to replenish that glycogen. And this is where you can have fast digesting carbs like honey, maple syrup, banana, stuff like that. And then protein, obviously, everybody knows that, at least to some degree. And the faster digesting protein, the better. So that's why, you'll see a lot of bodybuilders and stuff, they'll eat eggs. We digest that quickly. Fish is another one. And whey isolate. Grass-fed whey isolate, I will say, is quick, is digesting. And I will add to that, this is the period where you want inflammation in your muscles, because what's happening is, yes, you're tearing, giving those micro tears in the muscle fibers, and you're creating inflammation, and you want that inflammation because that's how you actually build muscle. So that's why, like, the first hour or couple hours, you want the inflammation to be there, and which means that, and I don't know if you know this or practice yourself, Flo, but like if you have something to counter that inflammation, like let's say you take an ice bath, like right after working out, you're getting rid of that inflammation that is in your muscle that's going to help you rebuild, stuff like that. Even if you have like,
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, because I was explaining to this client yesterday that yes, you do want inflammation. Inflammation is not an ultimate enemy. We have to make sure always in the health, as we build health knowledge, that we don't blanket statement things as unhealthy. And inflammation is totally something that is associated to cancer and such. However, inflammation is a natural phenomenon in the body to bring resources to the idea where there was damage created. So it is a healing mechanism. And what we want here is to make sure that this is, uninterrupted, so that what we eat is going to be, and not only what we eat, like there's other things that are already in our body that are going to be directed in priority to this area because of the inflammatory molecules that are going to that area because there was damage. So those muscles, there's a natural process that will bring inflammatory molecules in the body to create this repair. And that will also kind of encourage the fuel that you're putting in your body to go there also in the following minutes or hour or two. So it does make sense that you really just want to focus more on the macronutrients right after your workout, the meal that you have after, and focus on the anti-inflammatory nutrients in the subsequent meals the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And this is just to highlight the point that everything can be good or bad. Like just the inflammation is not bad. Like you hear these days, everybody's like, oh, inflammation's so bad, but it actually can be really good. And there's a reason why inflammation exists to begin with. And doing things to actually get rid of inflammation too much can also be bad. Because like if you have a lot of antioxidants, if you have too much of them, they become pro-oxidants. And like if you're taking too much NAC, you're getting too much polyphenols in your diet or any sort of thing that increases that in your body, it can be end up being too much. Which brings me to also the point where in that first hour or so, even if you have like if you have a smoothie with like a bunch of berries in it that's like filled with vitamin C and stuff, although that's super healthy, what you're actually going to do is you're going to inhibit the inflammation in your muscles. So my recommendation would be like I have berry smoothies, I have them all the time, but have them like, before your workouts, a few hours after, stuff like that. It's just like all about timing and sequencing. And I'm sure like we're going to do more podcasts in depth about going into specifics with timing different foods, because I personally learned a lot about that stuff, not even to do with muscle building, just helping your immune system and fat loss and everything in general, which is super fascinating stuff. But yeah, also to the point, you don't want to be eating foods for recovery that are going to promote, I guess, long-term inflammation, you could call it.
Yeah, right. You don't want to completely inhibit the inflammatory process by focusing on anti-inflammatory things, but you also want to be mindful of not creating more inflammation, because more inflammation can create more damage, and you're really trying to if you're trying to be the most efficient possible in your repair, aka be less sore as possible, so you can continue on your consistency of your workout and not get discouraged because you're in pain the next day or the next 3 days. You want to be the most efficient in the repair, the healing. And so you want to make sure that you're not eating inflammatory foods either.
Exactly. So to sum it up, I mean, after your workout, yes, inflammation is good and you want that there, but that doesn't mean, like, we're not saying to go eat a poutine where there's just a bunch of deep fried stuff that's just gonna cause inflammation. You're gonna want to focus on those macros. It's like, yes, have the carbs of the potatoes, but have like a baked potato or something like that.
Yeah, focus on whole food and don't worry too much about, I guess, the highest anti-inflammatory foods. Keep those for the subsequent meals. And instead of going into what those foods are, really, that's what Google and Pinterest and search engines are for. It's easy to find a list of inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods, or you can reach out to us and tell us what your favorite foods are, and we can help you categorize them. I love to do that stuff. We can help categorize them into, okay, that's an ideal post-workout, pre-workout, or breakfast, or whatever, depending on the timing of your workout. And so that we can talk a little bit more about the specific compounds in the anti-inflammatory food that is actually unlocking your ability, or your fat cells' ability to release fat. So that's like the second component of what we want to teach today, is that if we go back to the berries, that you're not necessarily want to have a bunch of right after your workout, you want to keep that for the other meals, but you do want them. And the reason is they contain this enzyme that breaks down, let's say, or yeah, like breaks down a little barrier in the fat cell, which allows that fat cell to release the fat that is inside. And that might seem unrealistic, but it's actually like a real thing. Enzymes in the body are there for breaking things down or unlocking things. And there is a specific enzyme for unlocking your ability to release fat. And when you don't have much of it, or if you have a high stress aka high inflammation in your body, maybe you don't have enough of that enzyme to sort of do more than managing the inflammation that's already present. So what I mean by that is that perhaps like you do eat berries, but if you like mindfully increased berries or other things that contain anti-inflammatory compounds, you would get so much of it that it would manage the inflammation that is occurring because of, you know, your environment, but you'd have an overflow of it that could then be accessible for your extra fat cells to be releasing more fat. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's so huge. And just to put it into context too, this concept is why some people, especially, and this is probably going to be another podcast, but especially if you've lost weight before and you've done the weight gain and you gained weight, lost it, gained weight, lost it, it's going to be harder to lose weight. But that's not always the case. Even if you just have like a lot of inflammation in the fat cells, you have to get rid of that in order for you to lose weight, even if you're counting calories and like eating the right amount of calories and stuff like that. And that's just such a huge thing that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And this is
Mm-hmm.
why whole foods and eating healthy and balanced is so important. So you can target those mechanisms and stuff.
Oh yeah, and by targeting, like when I was in school and I learned that, I was like, wow, this is groundbreaking information. This little specific micronutrients that you can find in high quantities in certain foods is really literally like a key for the fat cells to open the door and release that fat. And with that, by doing that, coupled with the muscle building and eating more whole and less inflammatory foods. I've helped someone lose, I think she must have lost like about 30 pounds over the course of a year and a half, like a healthy rhythm of weight loss that she never gained back through changing her eating habits. And one of the first ones that she did was increasing foods with bioflavonoids, which is like the specific nutrients that will activate that enzyme in the body, which berries are a good example of, but it's not the only one. Other examples are actually spices like turmeric. Like there are spices, it's like there's not even any calories and it actually add taste to your food on top of helping your weight loss. So yeah, that
Even
is
like,
such a key for getting results.
yeah, even capsaicin for like the thermogenic effect of that, just spicy food.
Yeah. Spicy spices, like spices that feel like it creates heat will generally have a high amount of antioxidant.
Yeah.
And that gets really, you know, if you want to read about it, that gets quite, yeah, it gets quite technical, but I mean, it's worth looking into because there's so much to be actually. The thing is, like, sometimes it's hard to transition from like fast foods to whole foods because the taste, you know, like the lack of flavor because we're used to the salty things and the sugary things. But when we can bring ourselves to sort of explore spices and like that, which like bring a real benefit for weight loss, it can help the transition. I know it did help for this client.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is all so important. And on top of this, like separate from inflammation, I'm just going to say this now, just so we remember, but we could do another podcast on supporting the liver
Mm,
to help with
mm,
losing weight because
yeah.
that's a huge factor as well,
Oh
actually.
yeah. If I remember correctly, that person who I just mentioned that I helped lose, I think it's about 30 pounds over a healthy period without gaining it back. There was a focus on the liver at some point because the liver, it's the waste management and it has a link with inflammation and free radicals because if you have like a good elimination, then you have less stuff that stays and sort of becomes toxic in your body. And when we say toxic, we're talking about free radicals, which is inflammatory.
Yeah, exactly. And in our 12-week program, Journey to the Best You, a weight loss adventure, it's an adventure. You not only get all the tools to help you shift your mindset and change your habits and empower you, and the group support to help you stay consistent, and the breakthrough coaching calls to dive deep into things that are holding you back and helping you make huge shifts. But
Such
we
as
all,
stopping overeating.
yeah, so just stopping overeating. But we also, Flo and I are here to help you in detail with these things and to tailor an exercise program and protocol, diet, whatever you want to call it, to suit your lifestyle. And not only that, but to do it in a way where you can learn how to do it yourself so that you're not going to be codependent on external forces, whether it's us or other people or programs or diets telling you what to do. You will develop the knowledge and the tools to create your own exercise program, to choose what foods are best for you, and to plan your meals and time them accordingly, and a lot more. Like, this is what we do. So if this interests you, as always, we'll include the links and information to contact us in the show description. And no pressure, like straight up, just book a call with us. Doesn't cost anything. We can just have a conversation, see if it's right for you.
Yeah, and you've got time to make a decision. The next cohort starts in January 2024. So you have time. Let's, choose a date to talk and let you make a decision that feels empowered for you so that you jump in at the right time for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we covered a lot for today. Did we miss anything, or did we cover pretty much everything?
I feel complete with this.
Yeah, awesome. Me too. And that was super great. So hopefully this gives you some insight in your own life so that you can start making changes. And yeah, just you can be the best you right now. Like, you don't have to wait for anything. And honestly, you don't even have to join our program. Like, you can choose to be who you are and be the person who utilizes their maximum potential every single day.